Star Trek Voyager, Starfleet Academy, Quarantine, Chapter 9. Kathryn grabbed at Timothy, trying to cushion him as they fell into a long, twisting chute. She could see the others trying to grab at the sides of the metal slide, all trying desperately to slow their downslide speed, but to no avail. Even though she wedged herself between the sides of the chute and Timothy, her friend would still occasionally let out a cry. She knew it must be even more scary for Timothy. He was wrapped in the sheet and couldn't see what was happening. She fell out of the chute with a thud, her hands stinging as it hit the grassy ground. As she looked up, she saw Timothy rolling away from her. She stood up quickly and raced over to her friend. "Timothy, are you all right?" She unwound the sheet frantically from around his head and chest as he tried to sit up. "Next time, you have an escape plan, Cadet Janeway. Count me out," Timothy said, holding his head as Kathryn continued to pull at the blankets. Laswa, rubbing her arm, knelt down beside Kathryn and Timothy. "He sounds fine," she said. "Still obnoxious as ever." Kathryn nodded. "How about you?" "I hit my elbow when we landed," she said, looking at her arm. "I fell on a stone. It will be fine." Kathryn looked around. In the dim moonlight, she could tell the others were shaken, but all right, too. Blinar was standing up next to Lane, scanning the horizon. "I don't see anyone, Mary or otherwise," Blinar called back to Kathryn. She looked at Laswa. "Does the communicator work?" Laswa shook her head. "I don't understand. It should work. Mary said he was beaming up. All I get is silence." Kathryn sighed in frustration. "Are you sure?" "Enough talk," said Lane gruffly. Kathryn looked up at the Ober and noticed he looked different. His eyes were wider than usual, and he made no gestures with his hands when he spoke. As she watched, he moved his pack from side to side as if it were uncomfortable. Maybe the plague was catching up with him, or maybe he thought they would be caught. He yanked on a thick, straight branch of a nearby tree and tested the heft of the stick in his hand, an action that almost looked like a threat to Kathryn. Lane turned and pushed by the cadets. "Follow me." Kathryn was soon tired of walking over the dusty, dry terrain. "I think I'll make a mental note," she thought. "Next time I'm in a fix like this, I'll ask how far it is to the sea." This was definitely much worse than backpacking in the wilderness with her family. At least she had water and food at that time, even though her backpack weighed about 30 pounds. Here they had nothing, except a few chunks of bread that they'd saved from their last meal. She also noticed the others were tired, too. The thin-soled shoes provided by the Chats were uncomfortable on an uneven, sandy ground. Even Lane looked tired and would often shiver as he walked. Kathryn stole a look at Laswa and shook her head. "I keep telling myself one step at a time, but it's still hard." "I know. I hope we get there soon, Kathryn. We are all tired." Lane paced as the group stopped to rest near an open glade. "Just one working communicator." "Just one working communicator," muttered Blinar. "Just one little face, sir. Why couldn't we be more like the Klingons? I heard they carry mini weapons at all times. Why don't they teach us something like that at the academy?" "Cadets?" said Timothy as he leaned against a rock. "All those in favor of Blinar keeping quiet, please raise your hand." Kathryn and Laswa raised their hands. Blinar grimaced. "Before I stop talking, I have one question. Why hasn't the Tsiolkovsky picked up our presence yet? If Marie did beam out like he said, shouldn't they be picking us up too?" No one had an answer. Kathryn was puzzled too. Certainly the captain would have someone monitoring the planet at all times. Maybe someone was blocking their signal. And even though Kathryn tried not to think of the worst-case scenario, it still popped into her mind. Was the ship still in orbit? Lane struggled up a sandy hill and waved to the cadets behind him. "Here it is." Kathryn reached the crest of the hill and smiled. She had never seen such a wonderful sight. It was sunrise, and they had traveled to the edge of a beautiful blue-green sea. As she listened to the sounds of the waves washing on the shore, Kathryn felt tired. If only she could curl up on a soft sandy dune and allow the gentle waves to soothe her to sleep. Lane walked to the edge of the sea. Stooping down, he put long fingers in the water and pulled out some long, red blades of vegetation. He looked over at Kathryn and smiled, his blue eyes suddenly wide with excitement. "It's still here. Can you see the heat coming from it?" Kathryn shook her head. "That's right, you can't. Believe me, Cadet Kathryn Janeway, it looks wonderful to my eyes, and there is enough of it to process. Come, cadets. All you have to do is pull out the grass at the base, but only if it's bright red. Try to keep out the blue ones. They're not ripe enough yet." Kathryn walked to the water's edge. Everyone took off their shoes and rolled up their pant legs. They were soon gathering the vegetation, carefully placing the seagrass into Lane's pack. As the water washed up and over Kathryn's bare feet, she wished she could enjoy the feel of the warm water, but she had work to do. Laswa took a deep breath. "It is good air here, Kathryn." "And I think I'll build a house here," said Timothy, looking up at the sand dunes as he picked the seagrass. Blinar shook his head as he scooped up another batch of grass. "First you want to escape from here. Now you want to build a house." Kathryn bent over, listening to her friends and smiling as she washed a bunch of red grass in the warm water. Suddenly Lane was standing next to her, his eyes watching not the ocean but the land. "Is that it?" Kathryn asked, looking at Lane's full pack. "Yes," she heard Lane answer. Kathryn stood upright to face a hand phaser Lane pointed at her. Her heart froze even further when she saw Lane sniff the air twice. Before she could say anything, the oboe whistled 3 times, the noise shattering the peaceful sunrise. Kathryn's heart pounded faster as she saw some movement over the short rise of dunes. Running toward them were the silhouettes of 7 tall forms. As they came closer, she could see there were government officials, each carrying blaster rifles in their arms. Thick protective suits covered their braided uniforms, and gas masks sheltered their faces. "Blast!" Blinar hissed. He looked up at the guards, threw a bunch of grass into the shallow water. "Kathryn, quick! We have to..." Kathryn put a hand on Blinar's arm, stopping him from making any sudden moves. "No, Blinar, not now. We're outnumbered." The guards quickly surrounded the cadets. No one spoke as they pushed Kathryn, Blinar, and Laswa together. One of the officials nudged Timothy, and he pushed the guard back. As the guard brought his rifle up to strike Timothy, Lane called out, "No! Governor Olnema doesn't want any of them hurt." As the guard pushed Kathryn past Lane, she stopped, noticing that he didn't seem as sick as he did in the Great Hall. She also realized that Lane was probably the reason why Marie's signal disappeared and the Tsiolkovsky's sensors had not found them on the planet. The government was blocking the signal. "Tell me one thing, Lane. Whose side are you really on?" she said, hoping the sound of her voice was as biting as she felt. Lane threw his head back and made a whistling sound. "You really didn't think that I was going to help you, did you?" he said, talking almost as rapidly as a chat. "I am the perfect spy. The Zahn's right hand? She offers me nothing," he said, spitting and whistling again. He leaned over almost nose to nose with Kathryn, his wide blue eyes trying to stare her down. She didn't flinch. "She'll find out when we get back to the Great Hall. You can count on that," she said, still glaring at him. "I don't think so," he said, standing up straight, his long fingers grabbing a blaster rifle from a nearby guard. "They are taking care of her, even as we speak. And me? The government has promised me a cure if I turned you in. So Governor Olnema can make an example of you," said Lane, almost hissing his words as he sniffed at the cadets. Kathryn shook her head when she noticed his spiked white hair wave slowly. "And maybe they'll even give me a position in the government." He pulled a gas mask over his head and motioned to the others. "Take them back to the Great Hall." The cadets were pushed along quickly, retracing their steps back toward the dome they had just left. As they walked, Timothy caught up with Kathryn. "I feel a little funny," said the cadet, shivering. "Kind of cold." Kathryn's eyes went wide. She put Timothy's arm over her shoulder and helped him to walk. Her anger kept her walking the long distance back to the dome. She was furious, and she couldn't help it. Her plan to help the Obers and the others backfired because the man she and the Zahn had trusted had betrayed them. And now, Timothy may be coming down with the plague. She was also scared, afraid none of them would make it off this planet alive. Chapter 10. Laswa landed next to Kathryn as she was thrown unceremoniously into the great hall. Kathryn grabbed her friend's hand and pulled her to her feet. "Thanks," said Laswa, brushing off the arms of her tunic. "I joined the academy to be a navigator, Kathryn, not a backpacker. My feet are killing me." Kathryn nodded in agreement. Her feet were hurting too, especially because she helped Timothy through the dunes and back to the domes. Blynar was tending to Timothy now, and from the look on her friend's face, she could tell he wasn't doing well. "Do you see the Zahn?" she asked Laswa. The Hasik looked around the room, squinting her eyes to see in the dim light, then shook her head. "You do not think they—" "I don't even want to think about it," interrupted Kathryn. "Let's ask around." Kathryn and Laswa walked over to a group of Obers near the food table. As they approached, one of the Obers looked over, her eyes wide with fright. The others turned too and moved away as the two cadets approached. "Hey, wait," Kathryn said, grabbing the last retreating Ober by the arm. The man let out a cry and pulled his arm away. "I just want to ask about the Zahn." "They won't listen to you." Kathryn looked down at a young Ober, a female, but couldn't have been more than 7. "What do you mean?" "They're afraid of you," she said, swinging her arms in a wide circle. "You followed the one called Lane to the outside of the dome, and after you left, that mean man took the Zahn away." "What mean man?" asked Laswa. "You know," she said, looking down and pulling at a bandage on her hand. "One of Nima the Meanie's guards. I don't like him." Kathryn smiled at the youngster. "Did they say where they took the Zahn?" "No." And just as suddenly as the young girl appeared, she ran, disappearing into the crowd of Obers. Blynar walked over to Kathryn and Laswa. "Timothy is resting, and I have an idea, Kathryn," he whispered, leaning close to her ear. "Why don't we use the same way out of the dome to escape?" "I don't think so, Blynar. Thanks to Lane, they probably already know that escape route," she said. "What we have to do now is to rally the troops. Blynar, Laswa, follow me and follow my lead." The 3 cadets marched over to a large group of about 30 Obers. As the group started to disperse, Kathryn held up her hand. Many of the Obers stopped and turned. She took a deep breath, trying to stop her heart from racing. "I sure hope this works," she thought. "I've trained too hard to give up, especially to get into the academy. I will get back." "I know you're all concerned about our walk outside the dome," she said out loud, "but there's no need to fear the outside of the dome. The air is safe, and we will not contaminate you with anything else." "You don't know what it's like," yelled an older male Ober, his thin fingers twisting quickly as he spoke. "First the plague, and now you come in, contaminated with the outside air. Who knows what horrible germs you carry?" Several Obers in the group muttered, agreeing with her kinsman. Kathryn continued. "Believe me, we don't carry any germs. Listen," she said, pointing to Timothy. "Another one of us may be suffering from the plague. You and he need help. Help we can only get from my starship. But we can't contact them without your help." "We help you escape," said a young female Ober holding a child, "and we are punished while you disappear in your ship." Frustrated, Blynar leaned over to Kathryn, his ears twitching slightly. "This isn't working, Kathryn," he whispered. "Come on, we'll figure something else out." Kathryn looked at Blynar and shook her head. She couldn't. No, she wouldn't quit now. She was too close. "As someone once told me, Blynar, one step at a time. We need their help," she said. then turned to the Obers again. She was amazed at how calm she was, even with the Obers' angry stares.
As you can see, we have been outside, and we are not dead from the air.
You will be! An Ober yelled from the back of the room. Several Obers gestured with their long fingers held out toward Kathryn.
Really? Well, then there's something else you should see.
Kathryn ripped the shirt sleeve on her left arm and held up her hand.
You all know what this is, don't you?
Her wrist watcher was still there, the bright yellow Tana flower looking as fresh as the first day she wore it. She smiled as several of the Obers gasped. Following her lead, Blinar and Lasso also held up their left arms to the crowd, their wrist watchers still a vibrant white. Several Obers moved closer to the cadets.
I know you're all mad, and you should be mad, she continued, lowering her arm. The government has given you this plague, lied to you, and now they have taken your leader. But we can help you, if you help us.
One of the taller Obers walked out of the crowd and faced Kathryn. I am known as Bana, and I have fought with the Zon for ages. He turned to the others. Has this disease taken the fight out of all of you? Do you not remember the collector of Tabatin? We were able to change the law for our people. And why? Because we stood up to the government. And who is at the head of the fight? The Zon. But what of the other Obers? Asked an older male Ober, clasping his fingers in front of his chest, his wide blue eyes staring intently at Kathryn. We will contaminate our people.
Maybe, added Kathryn. But you said you cured the plague years ago, and my ship will help you find the cure again. All your people will be cured.
Kathryn looked around the great hall. It was so quiet, all she could hear was the whimpering of a young Ober lying on a cot behind her. Several of the Obers began to talk and gesture among themselves. Finally, two older male Obers walked to Bana and made two large circles with their hands. Kathryn smiled, realizing that circles made by the Obers were a good sign. Bana turned to the cadets. Several of us are strong still, even though we carry the plague. We will help. What do you have planned?
A massive escape, Kathryn answered. We can attack the guards all together. The sheer numbers will help get us out of here. Then we can contact my ship and find an antidote.
Then we must fight until we reach Nima's office, he said. That is where the central communications are located. You can contact your ship from there.
Do you think your people are strong enough to fight off the guards?
Bana nodded. Some of them will need to stay behind, but most of us will go. We will help you, Federation cadets, but on two conditions.
Yes,
she said, folding her arms across her chest. In the future, you will speak highly of us who are killed in the escape, he said, holding his left hand toward her. And second, you will not let the Obers die out forever, he said, his wide eyes becoming wider. Kathryn nodded.
You have my word,